So welcome to this Product Council session. Today, rather than the more traditional workshop or webinar session, we're going to be focused on gaining a deeper understanding of the experience and needs of hub operators. The purpose of this is that we're aiming at this being a learning session. So understanding how hub operators work, their day-to-day experience, what their pain points are, where there are gaps in what the devs are providing, and essentially trying to create a meeting of minds between the development community and the operators. So the ultimate aim, of course, is to identify specific areas where we can improve and to bring some of those lessons learned into the Mergeloop roadmap. So to that end, we have two operators presenting today with significantly contrasting experiences, which I'm hoping will allow us to really pick out the main points, the main gaps. So the first one is Litzaworks, who are represented today by Copier. And we have, of course, met Copier many times before. Litzaworks are a relatively new hub operator. They operate the WinePay service in Myanmar, and that service is based on, of course, the Mergeloop platform. And secondly, we have a presentation from Leana at Jopak. Jopak are a well-established hub operator, and they operate a range of services, including JomoPay. These are all, of course, based in Jordan, and they are currently using the CMA platform. So the format today is that each will present their experiences, and then we'll go on to have a panel discussion. I obviously have a few questions that I want to raise there, but questions from the audience will also be very welcome. You can ask them in person at the end, or perhaps you can put them in the chat as we go along. So I think that's quite enough from me for the moment. So I'm going to hand over to Pierre from Litzaworks to make a short presentation. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lobo. Okay. Can I share my screen?
I hope you'll be able to. Cool.
Okay, hi everyone. As Paul already introduced quickly, I'm Jay from the Litzaworks, and we are the head operator of the WinePay in Myanmar. We're quite new in this field, but we have done quite a lot of things, and we have quite a lot of experience when we tested this since the last year, 2011. So today we try to share you from the head operator view, what are the things that we are doing every day in the WinePay, and what are the things that we see as a challenge and how we can improve it. And this is a team approach, and actually the head operation team, the whole team, have me prepare all this document. We are really happy to share all this with you. So this is the content that we will share today. So the first thing we will share about daily operation, how we are doing in a very quick review of the daily operation of the head operator. And then we will share something about the friendly user testing. Actually, we have done this in the last year. We have the first phase of the testing, user testing with a VA client, VA many that really transited through the finance model, and transaction has been done, and we see everything is going well or not. This is we call friendly user testing. Currently, WinePay is in the second phase of the friendly user testing. Actually, next phase is closed user group, but for this we stay waiting for the availability group. The third thing that I share today is about the challenges in the day-to-day operation on our daily operation. And then I will share briefly about the fraud risk and dispute management, then we'll compromise a little bit, and then the most important part, the upcoming improvement, how we can improve these challenges in the near future. And the last, I will share something about this test environment do from the WinePay. So the first thing that we're doing is, of course, as a head operation, our main job is the managing the settlement. So these are the steps that we did in the settlement. I'm going to go one by one, but I will share only some key highlights. So here in our finance model, we have we can close and set at a window. But the thing is, for the reporting purpose, we still have to use that link and download from the other website, not in the finance portal, which means our finance portal is not available for the downloading the report directly into the finance portal. So after getting this report, then we send to the settlement bank and DFSB respectively. And after reconciliation, then we send to the settlement bank for the other settlement process. And I think this is more or less the same with the other settlement head operator who are doing this kind of process. But here, well, our main percent is a little bit much more manual because we are in a very early stage of the head operation. So most of the things are still not automated, and I will talk about this more in the challenge phase. And once we have that settlement through the settlement bank, then we have to collect the email from the settlement bank, and then we have to update in the finance portal. After this, the final settlement process has been finished. After finishing this, we also have to download the report again and then send to the DFSB manually through the email. And this is current practice for what we are doing now. Then we have to monitor very closely about this balance and net debit that we control. This is our main principle of the head operation. We have to control the liquidity amount of the DFSB is quite well enough to cover his or transaction. For now, we use the NDC principle, so no one can settle more than the NDC amount. So we have to know very carefully how this NDC has been changed in the bank account, their settlement account in the settlement bank. So this is the management settlement that we do currently at once a day at 3 p.m. every day at the Myanmar time. So the second big thing that we're doing is onboarding our DFSB. So whenever DFSB here, as you all know, is mentioned about the mobile wallet and also the MFI. So one of the mobile wallet or MFI when you try the WinePay, then we got this onboarding process. So for onboarding, the main thing is about the business workflow. We have to understand at the first meeting, we have to try to understand what is the business flow, how they are doing, and how they can link with our WinePay head operator. So the first thing that we do is introduction meeting, and then we discuss a lot about the API integration. Because for now, WinePay in WinePay we use a lot of API integration with all the DFSB or running all this space smoothly. So the most important part here is only the API integration, and we have a lot of that testing it, and after the end-to-end testing, then they are ready to go live and join the WinePay system. Of course, during this there are a lot of meetings that we have to have with them. For now, most of the MFI and also we can say almost all the MFI who join the WinePay, they have chosen the payment manager as an integration layer. So there are some that we have to do with this one. So after onboarding, then we have the supporting fashion. Supporting fashion is after we go live. What I mentioned live here is not a commercial live, it is a go live for the FGD phase. So we can do the real transition with a real cash. So after this go live, then we have a lot of supporting for them. If they have something not working very properly, then they can come to the service desk and they can open a ticket. And once they have open ticket, because in our country, this is not very common yet, because some of the MFI, they stay trying to learn how to open the ticket properly and given the information very properly. Previously, usually complain through the social media like the Skype or something like that, or maybe they send an email. But now we're training them a lot to use the service desk so that we can know very clearly, and they can also check the service regularly for all their feedback and all their issue and challenges. And with use of service desk, then we can know more about the tracking and analysis after the certain period. So this is the thing that we do in the support and try to find a root cause, and we have some dispute case happen during the FGD phase, and we try to find out the risk from the support side. So what are the risks that may happen when we go next phase, like the CUG or even the commercial go live. So we have a lot of team preparing in the supporting side, try to support the DFS be ready for the working with the WinePay. And most important part we have facing is about the reference process also. Most of the MFI, they don't want to delay it in the reference process. For example, if one transaction is not successful, but then has been I can say the client already paid something on the transaction is not successful, then we have to refer to the client. So for this client, for now, it's not a MFI client. Actually, it is a MFI staff, their internet staff. However, the MFI are really sensitive about the reference process. They always think about, they always ask about if the client transaction is not successful, but his amount has been deducted or something like that from the wallet or whatever it is, then the client will be so unhappy. So they always think about this refund process, and so we also prioritize this refund process. Whenever there's is a refund that we need to do, we will do it within a very fast day, first or second day or something like that after the issue happened. So the next thing that I want to share is previously I just shared these are the currently working area of the YB head operation, and this is the lesson learned. Actually, this we already shared in the PI 18 community. More than the similar, I just share it here again to refresh your memory where we have experience in the FGD1. Now we are in the FGD2, so we didn't have any report yet, but after the FGD2, we will also share with you the report what we have learned in the FGD2. So this is just for refresh your memory. We just share it here again. Okay. So the next thing is about the challenges on day-to-day operation. So the first thing, of course, the settlement process, like I already mentioned here, the generator settlement report or the report, if possible, we really would like to get it from the finance portal so that it will be on only one start area. So we do all the settlement here, and then we download all the report in the finance portal, and then we send to the and DFSP respectively from the finance portal to the any portal or something like that is much more efficient for commercial go live stage. So this is our only first goal to get a report and audit report in the finance portal. And the second thing is for now we have to do in that manual processes. So the manual process, what we mean here is the settlement bank have to be sent as the email for their liquidity amount balance has been changed by the MFI or whatever it is from the DFSP. So if there's some transaction in the DFSP liquidity account, we may know only by one mail, which is the email from the settlement bank. Maybe in the future, we hope that it will be automated system or some API call that whenever the change in the liquidity amount, the finance portal should aware of the change immediately so that there won't be any other issue for the liquidity challenge. So here, the main challenge that we see is we have to get notification from the settlement bank once there's a change in the liquidity balance. For now, we cannot get it at once. We have to wait for a while, so that they cannot send it on time because this is the testing phase is quite okay. But if we go to the next phase, we see this very big challenge. And the third thing that we see is an automation process that we would like to get automation process to calculate and update the NDC. Because for now, for NDC, we have to check the NDC, liquidity amount from the bank, and then we have to calculate ourselves by the set by the scheme council. So we hope that in the future it will be much more better for the finance portal to operate efficiently if NDC calculation will go all the automation process with the automation process. This is our main challenge. And the fourth one is about the report is audit report. For audit report, the liquidity amount fee in the report. We for now we have to calculate this manually. Then what we want to check is, for example, if one of our team member has calculated it wrongly, how can we know this? So we have to go to the audit report to see how it is changing, who has changed it at what time or something like that for the audit trail. But this session, that's what we want to get for the operation efficiency. And the last thing about the transaction ID, this is not a big deal. This is something like the UI/UX. Sometimes the transaction ID is not very clear if you are in the finance portal. So that's why this channel will be in the last thing. Okay. Oh, thank you. Sorry, I a little bit fast. If you have something something too fast, you can raise your hand and I can read explain again. Sorry, I speak a little bit fast. I think that is going. Sorry. And support and service desk. So after the settlement, the support and service desk, the main challenge that we face is not in the technical way, like I said before, much more on the DFSP side. In Myanmar, some of the MFI they're not familiar with this ticketing system, and when they raise the issue, they usually will write down the issue in the incomplete way. So we have to ask them again what is really happening and why this year happening. For now, the issue are not that much, and we have time. We can compare to them and explain them how to write it very properly and what do they want or something like that in the ticket very properly, and ask them to check the ticket it just send after your so that they can know all the things. So Here, the thing is we have to train a lot our MFI, especially MFI, mobile, also send mobile wallet about the GS ticketing system. And another thing that in the supporting side, we are facing some challenges. Sometimes the background for processes are happen because this is quite new for the MFI. So sometimes when we ask them to check something and reply back to us, so they take a lot of time. And sometimes they're busy with the other thing. So what we worry is in the next phase, and the CUG is if it is with a real client, it should be much more efficient, and the support process will must be more smoothly happen between all these party like the wallet, settlement bank, the MFI, all these things. This is our main challenge for the support services. Uh, the major challenge that we face here, another one is that about the head fee, because for non-finance for the everything, we mainly focus on the transaction, not on the head fee. So as a head operator, we assume that in the near future, we may need to think about how we will collect the head fee per transaction or whoever it is, the model that we selected. There should be some technology that will calculate all the head fee in a systematic way. So for heavy, we have to get ready for the technology. This is the challenge that we see here from the head operation side. So another topic that we want to share from the payment manager side, as I mentioned before, for now, all the FSB in Myanmar, they optionally use the payment manager to connect the hub. So that's why we want to raise some of the concern from the payment manager challenges that when we discuss with them, they also share us these changes that they want to improve for their functionality. So the first thing is about the transaction data time is not localized time. So they said they want to get more localized time zone. And the second thing, the institution name, they have to search the name by typing, by manual typing, which may be wrong because sometimes their staff may only type the name and they may not be it but correctly. And the third one that they shared is about this name feature fashion. This we already shared before in the ticket also. The end-of-life value has been in the data is full. So this has been one of the issues that they raised to us, and the rest are some minor thing. But for payment manager, of course, this is the optional. But because currently all the FSC in Myanmar, they choose payment manager as an integration back to the hub. So that's why we raise this issue here. So the next thing about the fraud risk management and dispute management, what we are preparing to do now is fraud risk management is really one of the most important. Actually, we already have a risk management version 1 approved by the Skin Council. And in this risk management document, we have included almost all the part, but we want to highlight more on the fraud management. And so now we are working on fraud risk management separately in the FGT2 phase. So we are also discussing with some of the risk specialists and FRMS system. So we are now trying to develop also the policy and procedure from the head operation side to include the fraud risk in the risk management, because our version 1 of the risk management is not a very comprehensive one. It's just basic code on the risk management of the head operator. So now we're trying to add on more feature like the risk registry and fraud risk in the version 2. Now we are on the phase of preparing this version 2 of risk management. So fraud risk management is also one of our challenge. What we see is we have to foresee it, and if we want to go to the next phase with a real client, like CG phase, we definitely know that this is a need, this is a mess. If we don't have this, it will be much more problem with the client. And dispute also the same. For now, the dispute management, for the dispute management, we already prepared version 1, like the risk in the FGT1 phase, we already finished version 1 of the dispute management, but we see that this document and also the policy procedure are not very comprehensive. So we decided to develop version 2 in the FGT2 phase by the lesson learned of the FGT1, and also during this FGT2 we saw a lot of things that we can improve for internal dispute management. So we are revising all these things, and we have already developed a version 2 from head operation side, just waiting the approval from the Skin Council. So internal regulatory compliance, as the head operator of the YP, we are currently continuously engaged with the regulatory body of the Myanmar, so that we can have a proper approval from that. And the next thing is about the compliance. For compliance, we already agree that the regulatory and compliance requirement where we address in the instruction from the regulator, whatever the regulator has mentioned that we have to follow, we will definitely follow it. Because in Myanmar, like YB, like the structure like YB is quite new, and so standard compliance matter we may need to know if they have requests yet. But anyway, we can do our best to be in line with the compliance. Okay, so the most important part academic improvement, what we are planning and what we are thinking about improvement, and for the health operation of the YMP, the first thing is that we want to monitor the DFSB liquidity account very properly, because for now it is manual process like I mentioned before. So when the DFSB change their liquidity balance by adding or withdrawing the amount, we have to know it as soon as possible. Otherwise, the health operator will have a liquidity challenge, which is the biggest challenge for now. Because if there's no enough in the liquidity amount, but the transaction has been happened with the client, this will be a major challenge for the head operator. So that's why we always raise this as a first option, as a first challenge and improvement. Also for improvement, this is the first thing. For now, we're doing it manually. So for improvement in this one, we have assigned proper mega checker and continuously checking the email, how they have changed their balance, so we can change in the finance model immediately with a mega checker process. So not only there's one mega, there's only also one checker to check whether this has been changed properly or not, because these are the manual process. So this is always our main challenge. And the second is for improving. We're thinking about the DFSB portal, so the DFSB can get a report like I told before. For us, we can get a report from the finance portal, and then they should get something in their portal. Otherwise, they also don't want to get this via the email only. It will be so complicated and not efficient in the future if we question it live. And automation of the settlement process is for now the settlement process has so many manual process. So we hope that in the future it can be in a much more in automation process. We hope so. So that's why we mentioned this, and this need more discussion for the next step, how we can go automation on the settlement process. For ourselves on operation side, we continuously reviewing, improving our policy procedure. Like I also mentioned about this race dispute, these are the same example. Like our support workflow, we also developing support workflow version 2 or FUD2. We have some document in the FUD1, which is not very comprehensive, but it's a basis and goal of the support workflow. So now we're doing the version 2. So all these things we are continuously preparing and reviewing all these things. For the audit, like I also share is for this we also need more discussion. Some of the audit feature are not very helpful, and we still need to improve some of the things. Some of the things are quite okay, but the thing that we need to know, like I shared about this NDC chain. If there's an NDC chain, somebody have changed it manually, but the audit trail didn't show us perfectly, then we may not know this mistake and why, so that we cannot learn. So that's why we want to update this kind of audit function in a finance portal. The next thing is about our potential issue for the wallet. So we have now True Wallet joining in the FUD, and then 2 more wallet who are joining. But whenever new wallet coming in, there's always new challenges, because different wallet have different policy and different system. So also the UI UX is also different. So we have to make sure from the lesson learned on the FUD1, we notice that sometimes when we set a rule or when we use this principle, sometimes some of the wallet they said, okay, I cannot show this message in my wallet. So this is why we need to make sure this is academic improvement one. So the most important for the head operator is also checking the wallet. Why we say this? If more or less MFI are quite stable, we see like this here, because in Myanmar most of the MFI, the nature, although the system are sometimes a bit different, but it's still okay. So it's more or less similar, and basic code is the same, but internal wallet difference is much more higher. And also the client, the MFI client will pay through the wallet. So their user interface is really, really important for us. How they see YP, how they see the MFI is really important, for how they see their balance or how they see they have to pay is really important for us. So we have to put it in the upcoming improvement. For the head operator ourselves, these are the things that we have to improve to manage and larger number of transaction for the next phase. We hope that in the next phase, in the CUG phase, the transaction may be more. So how we get to improve ourselves for the head operation side? So the first thing that we think that we may need to set up 2 or more times. For now, we have only once in a day. So in the future, we see that the transaction, the settlement may be doable, so that it will be much more efficient, and the DFSB, especially the MFI, can use the money much more efficiently. The liquidity flow will be much more better. And for this, we also have to assign more resources. If we don't have automation ready, there are a lot of manual steps and a lot of maker checker are needed to make everything is correct. Otherwise, there will be issue. So we need to assign more resources to monitor all the bank transaction, all the settlement process, and everything. And the last thing is, on next phase, we prepare it to engage with the relevant user as quickly as possible for the refund processes, because this is the MFI main concern about the refund. How they can get a refund as fast as possible, how the client can get a refund as early as possible. This is always their main concern. So for this, we have to improve ourselves. Okay, lastly, this is the test environmental tool that we use in the YBay and FUD1 and now FUD2. We have the finance water, we have Grafana, we have YBay document management system, which is we keep all the report that we downloaded from the website here, and that we share with the DFSB. And we have payment manager, and the last thing is about the monitoring and logging. We have Grafana, Loki, and Lens. So these are the test environments and tools that we use in the YBay now. Yeah, thank you everyone.
Thank you, Pierre. That was really good, really interesting, comprehensive as well. I think that in order to give you a bit of a breather, catch your breath after that, because you did cover an awful lot of ground there. I think I won't submit you to questions now, so I'll give you a bit of a break, and I'll ask Leana from JOPAC to come next and give her counter presentation, I suppose you'd term it, highlighting her different experience. Leana, are you there?
Hi, can you see my screen?
Your screen.
Perfect.
Yep, I can see your screen.
It's loading from my side.
Sure.
Okay. What exactly?
I can see that now. Thank you, Leana. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Leana. I'm heading the business development and business operations at JOPAC. I have a couple of slides regarding JOPAC. We are basically a payment system operator that was established 2017. We're owned by Central Bank of Jordan or commercial banks. We do have 5 clearing systems under JOPAC, which currently we operate both Click and JomoPay, and for next year we'll be operating the ECC, which is the electronic check clearing, and the ACH. So our high-level goals when we do system designs about safety, efficiency, interoperability, sustainability.
Sorry, Leana, I'm going to jump in. Sorry. Would you mind going back to the previous slide? And for the benefit of this audience, would you explain the difference between Click and JomoPay?
Yeah, I have a slide that explains actually the difference.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. I apologize.
No, that's fine. So basically, we abide, of course, by the Central Bank of Jordan. We fall under the oversight and supervision of Central Bank of Jordan. We take into consideration our system designs and data content FATF recommendations and BIS, and World Bank, in addition to some recommendations from the AFI regarding our payment systems. So as Paul said, we currently operate the JomoPay and Click. Our system is provided by CMA and runs over the ISO 20022 message scheme. So basically, Click and JomoPay are brands and scheme names. Click has its own scheme rules for banks, while JomoPay has its own scheme rules for wallet providers. However, both run on the same infrastructure. So all of the services provided by Click to bank users are provided to JomoPay to wallet users. So we have intra-scheme interoperability and we have inter-scheme interoperability. Meaning that if I am a wallet customer, I'll be able to transact with all wallets to and from, and to all banks connected to the system. That's why you see that participants are basically connected to the switch itself. However, the switch guarantees operability. Different scheme rules are between Click and JomoPay. So those, we consider Click and JomoPay as national brands, national schemes. I want to start with our work actually with this slide. As you can see, it's on purpose we draw the services that are availed on the system on small boxes, because our system works on a modular level. So if the central addressing scheme, which is basically a proxy for aliases and mobile numbers, doesn't work, the system would still operate. If the display platform is not working, the system would still operate. If the credit confirmation is not working, the system would still operate. So that's, we always look for, and when we do our designs or our evaluations actually to system and switches, we always check how the system is robust in terms of failures of certain modules. Of course, the core itself, once it's down, everything is down definitely. So that's why it's made and developed on a modular base. The system is connected directly through the RTGS. When I say direct connection, it means that the net clearing position is basically sent via a financial message that is generated automatically by the system. And it is system-to-system connection when it comes to settlement to ensure that this message is not tampered or is not being played with. So it is a system-to-system connection. If you have any questions, please, because I cannot see hands or anything when I'm presenting, please feel free to jump in and ask anything that you would like me to emphasize on or discuss. Just to give you a quick, also brief, JomoPay, we have, Okay. We have 8 payment service providers, mobile payment service providers, and we have 20 banks connected to the system. So we have in total 28 financial institutions, and in Jordan acquiring is different. Acquirers are also connected. We have one non-bank acquirer, which is Network International, and we have 3 acquirers over the system between MAPS, Arab Bank, Capital Bank, and now we are certifying with InvestBank. So it is a full, Please feel free to stop me.
Please go ahead, Leona. There are no questions being raised at the moment.
Okay. So our rule of thumb when it comes to operating any payment system is that we are always and forever the source and table of truth of any payments or any disputes. So if my system says that this message or this payment was posted, no bank or no financial institution will ever question that, because our systems, I always tell them, if even a bird flew over the system, we want to know. We accomplish this through very robust audit logs, and I'm going to explain that now. So this is our rule of thumb when it comes to operating payment systems. My department, or the business operations department, scope of work is actually divided into 5 subsections. System operations and management, which is the obvious. We have system participant support, and you have the system testing, acceptance, and vendor management. You have system enhancements and change requests, and we have the support of other departments within JOPAC, such as, for example, compliance, risk, data team, and our knowledge and dissemination department. So from a system operations and management, you will see that on the screen we have 3 main colors: the operations workstation, the administrator workstation, and the participant workstation. Our instructions in Central Bank of Jordan, or regulatory instruction, mandates to have a segregation of duty when it comes to the system itself. So the operator workstation and the administration workstation differs even on the level of access. So the access of the administration workstation with certain views is given to the IT department for onboarding participants, defining 2 participants. However, the operation workstation and the configuration of the system. However, the operations workstations would be able to change things that are related to the operation of the system, but not the configuration of the system. We always ensure that we have different roles within the system, whether on the operator side or the administrator side, even on level of a maker checker. So each and every click on the system would actually, it is enabled to have a maker checker, whether you are an operator or one from the operations team, or if you're from the IT or the admin team. We also have a participant workstation, or I would say it's a participant interface that they would actually, it's a monitoring tool for them to check their incoming messages, outgoing messages, their positions. However, this is only viewing and for monitoring. But what happens in Jordan that participants develop their own portal and interface depending on the messages that we have and the content of each and every ISO message. So if I want to start with the participants' connections, we do provide an adapter. We call it an STPA. It's a straight through processing adapter that would ensure participants are connected. I'm talking now specifically on the instant payment because we always request a two-way communication with a heartbeat happening in the system every 30 seconds to ensure that participants get connected because the system works on a 24/7 basis. So we provide an adapter. That adapter would actually manage the connections with the central node, but the adapter does not generate messages, does not do anything with the message. It's a simple, basically router, but it handles the heartbeat and the transport level connection. Also, from a participants level, we deployed the digital signature. So we do have, as a hub operator, we do have a PKI infrastructure with an LDAP to manage business signatures of participants, to have their public keys in the system, because all of our messages are digitally signed by the sending participant. This is in terms of connections and the participants' connections. On the settlement level, on the settlement completion and the system, when I talk about this, by the way, each and every component in here is an interface that is given to the operator to actually check. So basically at JOPAC, if I want to say that we have a tab that is called connected users, I can see when the user is connected, when was it last connected, when it logged off, when did it log on, which type of adapter is actually using, the name of the participants, the way of communication, because we have some participants connected through REST APIs, while others use the STPA, and some of them use a proprietary component from CMA themselves. So it gives you everything about that connection and participant status of a connection. From a settlement perspective, just to let you know, in Jordan, all clearing systems settle at central bank money at RTGS. So as I said, it's a system-to-system connection. We ensure that connectivity is up and running on with the RTGS. Upon the settlement completion, and it is the NCP is automatically calculated based on the positions of each participant or each settlement participant. The message is sent to the RTGS. Once the RTGS automatically confirms the successful completion of the settlement, we have automatic reports sent out to participants. We do have clearing reports that are generated automatically and sent to participants on the system itself. And we have a settlement report that is also sent to participants. When you talk about posted transactions, failed transactions, volume and value, we always like to have a view on what transactions are accepted, the senders of each and every transaction, the total amount for each sender, the total amount of each creditor, what transactions were failed and why. Were they timed out? Were they rejected by the system? Are they rejected by the receiving entity? All of those ones. And we always filter, the system enables us to filter based on a participant, a transaction type code, an amount, a sender participant, and so on. This is done on a day-by-day basis. Volumes and values of the system that were cleared within a certain day. Currently, it's on a day level. However, I would always like to have it on a session level because we do have multiple sessions within the same day. Also, we have a tab, or we have something for the events management and checking unusual behavior of participants. For example, if a participant logs off for a sudden behavior, if a participant has its signature check failed, or if participant actually sent a message with the wrong format. We always worry when there is a different behavior, because all of the connections are automated and messages are sent automatically to the system. There's no human intervention. So when a participant actually sends a message in the wrong way, we directly know that there's something wrong with the participant. So we do inform participants that you have a different behavior in here, or this message was actually different than the other previous or subsequent messages. So we know that something is wrong at the participant's side. On a business day and session management, we have an interface that would actually enable us to amend a session, delete a session, add a session. If we have a sudden holiday, or for example, it's a sudden holiday and the system is running as a normal business day. However, we're able to actually convert that this is a holiday and no NCP is generated. On the sessions level, we're able to actually amend the session in terms when does the session start and when does it end, to give different windows for different sessions. We have sessions for clearing, we have exchange sessions, and we have NCP sessions, and we have end of day sessions. Also, business day and work days, holidays and work days are also predefined, but still are amendable from the operations side with maker checker, of course, capabilities. I consider it as one of the most important, and what makes the system very robust is the message delivery capabilities. So basically the system works in a persistent way, meaning that if a message was not delivered to a participant, the system will keep trying to send the participant this message until the message is acknowledged. So it works on the acknowledgement level, on the transport level. So once the message is acknowledged, it's no longer in the queue of sending messages. This actually, and as an operator, if I double click on the message, I would say that this message was failed, this message is ready to be sent, or this message was successfully sent. This is done on all of the levels of the messages. Any message sent to or from the participant, upon the receiving the acknowledgement of the participant, would have its own status to say this is successfully sent, this was not yet sent to be sent, or this was unsuccessfully sent, means that the participant did not acknowledge that message or negatively acknowledged that message. This is I think is one of the most robust components within the system, and one of the things that actually protect us as an operator, because no participant would say, no, I have not received that message. We have our logs would show that this message was sent on that day, this hour, this time, this millisecond, and was actually acknowledged by you. So participants, that's why our rule of thumb mandates to have the message delivery enabled. In terms of account management and liquidity management, this can be done by participants. I'm going to explain some of the participation models and how liquidity and account management is done. So each participant would set its own limits and debit caps on the system. However, some debit caps request the approval of the Central Bank of Jordan for banks. And once the participants send us the request, it is automatically sent to JOPAC. JOPAC only had to actually approve or authorize this request. While other participants' accounts do not fall under this maker checker, because we consider participants responsible of doing or setting caps of those accounts. Also on the positions and account management, each participant has the capability to check its current account, available position, and current position on the system in real time, by sending a request to the system, and the system will send back your debit cap, your remaining amount, and your current account on the system in real time. In terms of reporting, we do have, as I said, we have automatic reports in terms of clearing and settlement. Participants can also request the reports at any time they deem necessary, but automatic reports are sent for automatic reconciliations of participants. We also have a service that would allow you to inquire on a certain payment at a certain day with the message ID of the payment, and the status of that payment along with the chain of the payment would be provided to the participants. The boxes in the light gray are basically the ones that are enabled through the admin workstation, which is, I said, system configurations. Usually we do not log into the admin portal that often because configurations are set and done. Unless we want to change or we have a change on the system, we do that. System configurations would actually they have the capabilities to change business days. You can have new templates. You can have a new participants onboarding. You can change. You can create users to participants and users to the operator. So it's basically the admin work and the configurations of the system in terms of, for example, archiving, number of archiving of days. The timeout window, the timeout of different messages. You can also say that that participant is allowed to send this message, while that participant is not allowed to send this message. Also, settlement agents are managed from the admin portal or admin workstation. I can change the settlement agents of different non-settlement participants like mobile payment service providers. You can actually you can add currencies on that configuration, the limits in terms of minimum and maximum amounts. As I said, the monitoring tool is provided to participants. They can check their messages incoming and going. One of the things that I actually forgot to mention, but it is very beneficial when it comes to system management, is that we are able to lock participants for credit or lock participants for debit or both. Sometimes we have requests from participants that I'm doing an upgrade now. I don't want customers to be able to transact. So please lock my account for debit, but I'm able to respond to messages. So crediting my account is fine, but debiting my account is not. So we do sometimes look for debit and look for credit of participants. In terms of also, for example, for fees calculations, we do have a separate NCP that's sent to the RTGS for fees. Fees calculations are very flexible in the system. So I can have the fees set based on transaction type code for a certain participant on us transactions are not charged. I can have like a certain percentage sent to a certain participant, whether a debitor or creditor, fixed amount based on, I can set the fees based on the amount of the transactions. I can exempt certain transaction type codes. I can exempt certain participants from putting fees on. And for each and every configuration of the fees, you do have a report on the overall calculated fees per transaction that is separate from the report sent for transactions. We also have on the monitoring tool notifications, we have a debit cap threshold notification, and it's configurable. Currently, it's set at 80% at JOPA. So if a participant reaches its 80% debit cap, the system would automatically send alerts to the participant saying that your debit cap is actually dropping below the 80%. In terms of challenges to that, related to real-time notifications, not on the system level, but for example, connecting those alerts to your email or to the operations team email, or sending SMSs, and maybe at an extreme escalation level, getting the system, for example, to call the escalation levels. What we did currently at JOPA, and it was out of the scope of the system, that's why I put it as a challenge. We had our own notification system And we connected that system to the databases for each and every notification that occurs, whether a participant disconnects or a participant reaches its threshold or a participant has too many timeout messages. Those notifications were not part of the system itself. So we had actually to do that at JOPAC by ourselves, by our IT team. Also, when you talk about hub, or when you talk about system operations, usually the operations team are business operations. They're not, they do not have technical background. They don't need it. They only need to understand the high-level business flow of the system and the message and participants. However, I think it would be very beneficial if each and every interface or each and every click has its own description of the functionality of that screen or of that click. And proper documentation. For now, like I find it, it's one of, I don't want to say a drawback, but it's one of the enhancements that I would love to see. In terms of like this screen would do that, like on the screen itself and the interface itself. Also proper documentation, business documentation that would enable the operator or any team member of the operator to easily onboard him or herself on the system without the need for mentoring or one-to-one tutoring. And currently we're doing that at JOPAC. We call it a SOP document, which is system operational procedure. It will be a full document that would show you this is how it's done on step-by-step for daily monitoring, for monthly monitoring, because not all of the things that you need to monitor daily. Some of the things that you need to monitor on a monthly basis, while others on a weekly basis. For example, when you talk about archiving is done on daily basis. I want to ensure that archiving is done successfully, so that is enabled on the system to be monitored. For example, if you have certain changes on debit caps that does not occur daily, it might occur once every 6 months, that we need actually to monitor and get our notifications on. Also, one of the things that I think that are very beneficial is the search attributes to be used. Not only on message IDs, I would like to see other searching attributes such as the amount, the IBAN or the account number, a certain inquiry. Still on the system, I understand this might be a system limitation in terms of what is the primary key of the system to have your search on, but I think it would be good to be able to search on the account level of the sender or the receiver. In terms of, I want to jump just to participation models, because it does matter a lot to have a system that is robust and flexible to onboard any type of participation model, because you don't want to actually limit innovation and limit yourself from having other non-banking institutions mainly onboarded on the system. So in terms of connectivity, we have direct and non-direct participants. In terms of settlement, we have settlement and non-settlement participants. Currently in Jordan, direct access to the system is granted to entities that are licensed by Central Bank of Jordan, and those entities would have a continuous non-time bounded relationship with their customers and manage customers' account, and we call them as deposit takers, such as mobile payment service providers, merchant acquirers, and of course banks. So our system allows for a 3-tiered participation model. The first one is a direct settlement access. All commercial banks, because in Jordan only commercial banks have accounts at RTGS, so you have a direct settlement access. All banks are onboarded as direct settlement members, with the settlement occurring at Central Bank of Jordan. We have non-bank regulated financial institutions. They are direct participants on the system, but non-settlement, and they are sponsored by a settlement participant. We have non-bank, non-regulated financial institutions, such as companies and stuff. They are non-direct, non-settlement participants, and they use the system and the services through indirect participation, through a direct participant. For example, exchange houses access the system via banks and mobile payment service providers to transact, microfinance as well, entities, corporates, businesses, agents, merchants, all of those participants. In terms of settlement and liquidity management, I did mention that the system follows deferred net settlement. So basically, settlement participants, they can manage their own liquidity on the system via setting their debit caps on their settlement limit accounts. However, those caps are not directly reflected unless authorized by Central Bank of Jordan or approved by Central Bank of Jordan and authorized on the system by JOPAC. Non-settlement participants, their debit cap limits are set by their settlement participants and requires no authorization, because usually settlement banks would put debit caps of their sponsored accounts based on the availability of funds of that participant in the bank's account. As JOPAC, we do not have visibility on that, so it's the bank's responsibility to actually set the debit caps as it deems necessary and sufficient, and as agreed with mobile payment service providers. I combined the last 3 or 4 business development scope of work in this slide. We have support services, we have system testing acceptance, and we have system enhancements. Support services, as a system operator, we are here to serve participants. So we need to abide by certain SLAs. I would love to see a ticketing system embedded in the switch itself, that participants would be able actually to open tickets with us as a hub operator if the part based on a certain criticality, severity, and that ticketing system would actually allow multi-level of escalation, or would actually route the ticket as it deems necessary based on a certain workflow of the hub operator, because it differs from a country or even from a use case to another use case. Currently, what's happening is that we're using emails. However, we are deploying our own ticketing system, and it is outside of the system itself or the switch itself. I think that would be very beneficial, because once I have a ticketing system, I can abide by the SLA that was signed by all banks as an operator, and I would actually be able to evaluate the performance of the team members of the business operations in terms of the time required to respond or to solve an issue to a participant, abiding, as I said, on the SLA. The dispute management portal, participants are usually not as agile as hub operators when it comes to change, or when it comes to deployment and new things, or especially when it comes to designing new interfaces. We do have a dispute management platform, yet a portal will be developed for all participants. It will be white labeled by JOPAC. Participants will be able to actually raise disputes and communicate with each other. Currently, the communication that is enabled on the system is very, I wouldn't say user-friendly, but it requires lots of work from participants' perspective to design a proper communication channel. However, currently, we're thinking of actually having a portal for participants to be able to communicate. For example, if transaction was not credited, or a transaction was rejected, or a merchant payment needs to be disputed, or one of the customers actually transferred the amount by mistake, so request to return, and so on. To be able to provide proper support services to participants, audit logs are mandatory, with the highest level of auditing and logging should be done. As I said, our rule of thumb mandates that we know each and every single thing that's happening on the switch, to be able to defend the hub operator, and also to be able to support participants. So if a participant send me that it couldn't, for example, send the message, I need to understand on which level, where did the message stop within the component, or within the design, or within the flow. This also is related to, for example, connectivity, whether you're connected through the adapter or REST APIs, all of those things. For system testing, acceptance, and system enhancement, they are interconnected. We always like to have simulators. That was not part of the switch. We actually had to develop our own simulators to be able to do testing in UAT and user acceptance testing. You have to simulate actually cases that occur on the live environment. We need to simulate that case on the test environment. So instead of asking participants, we have our simulators that we developed internally that was not part of the switch itself. So I think this is very beneficial to have the hub operator simulator to simulate different participants with different participation models. Automated testing tool would make it very easy on the operator to check for new enhancements, for new releases, hot fixing, the management of them. Because, you know, like to test the system, whether it was a smoke test or a full test or any type of test, having an automated testing tool with all of the cases that can be amended and added is really, really very, very time efficient, instead of having the team actually just doing extensive testing and repetitive testing. If this can be automated, it would be perfect. And we're currently actually deploying an automated testing tool to reduce the number of, the time to do tests, especially if you have a certain urgent fix that needs to be deployed because it's affecting the live environment. If you have a hot fix, or if you have a certain urgent fix that needs to be deployed, if you do not have that, it will be very time consuming and it will be very stressful for the team to do the testing. Of course, we need the central repository for all of the cases. We are currently deploying that. It's outside of the system and it's not connected to the system, with a release and fix management tool and the change management tool. Because if you have different cases and different systems and different issues, you have different releases to fix each and every issue. You will not be able to track the releases if you don't have a proper change management tool to enable you to say, oh, this issue was resolved and this issue was not resolved, but this release contains this issue and this issue and this issue. This would actually help a lot in vendor management and would ensure the sustainability of the system, because you will have a historical data of all of things occurred on the system on how actually they were solved. This would enable a seamless transition if one of the team decided to quit, or if a team member is not available or is absent, anyone can actually solve and support. System enhancements, as I said, documentation, you need a proper change request management. Why do you need the change request? What is the impact of the change request? All of these things actually were not part of the system that we had to do. Probably if we had those embedded within the switch itself, it would be much easier, because you would connect all of those things together instead of having multiple parallel systems working together. So basically, this is it from my side.
Thank you, Liana.
Happy to take
Thank
it.
you. That was really good. Thank you. Very comprehensive run through of the operations challenges and coverage. I do have a whole bunch of questions I want to ask. I would encourage anyone else to pitch in with questions in the chat if we can. Pierre and Liana, I'm going to pitch some questions to both of you to begin with, and please feel free to jump in. I think that both of you have demonstrated just how complex the operations task is, and the need for a team that is really on it, really understanding what they're doing. So what kind of training do you undertake for new operators, and how long is it before you could regard them as competent and able to operate the service with minimal supervision, would you say? Liana first, possibly.
So basically, knowing when a new member comes at JOPA, what matters the most is to know how the system works and how the message flow is done and what are the data content within the message. So knowing exactly how the message flow works and knowing how participants are onboarded. So this is the type of training we do. So it's an extensive business training,
right,
on how to just the content of the messages, each and every tag in the message, how it works.
That's really quite technical. It's not so much operational. So
Yes.
your operations staff are very technically aware then?
Yes, each and every member of operations team in JOPAC is capable to read each and every message of the ISO 222 and knows each and every tab within the workstation itself, and would tell you exactly what to fill in each and every tag, and would tell you the flow of each and every financial and non-financial message.
That's a very bold claim. I've read ISO 222. How long would you say it takes to train somebody to an adequate standard?
This question is very subjective to the capabilities, but to know the flow, I think from business perspective, it would take around 2 to 3 weeks to be able to understand the messages, the content of the message, and so on. Take maximum up to 2 or 3 months. And to understand the system itself and how it works. Once you know all of that, it will be very easy for you to navigate throughout the system. So I would give it 2 weeks. So a total of 4 months would be actually sufficient.
Okay, right, that makes sense. Pierre, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, thanks a lot for this is very nice question. Thanks a lot, Liana, sharing this experience, because you are very strong experience. For us, we are just 1 year old. So for us, the first training that we get is from the modular training, because this is the first thing that we know about the modular and operating and how head operator is operating, and we learn from them. So for our staff, we learn our head operation from them, and then we learn from our experience and developing one by one. So for us, it takes more time, but for currently, we have been joining this since the last year, so most of the team now know more about the module. But we still need time to efficient, like Diana mentioned about, they can train some newcomer with a format. Okay, so try our best to train our newcomer to be master what we have in format. We are not very comprehensive like the actual best, but we can see very clearly it will be our future. Thank you.
Leona, I had a particular question for you, actually. You've talked about a lot of tools that you're using, a lot of processes that you're using to manage the switch. What proportion of those came from the supplier of the CMA, and what proportion did you actually develop in-house?
So the portal for the management of the system, because it needs access to the database of the system, it is from the vendor, from CMA, which is basically the configurations, anything that requires database on the system, it is from the vendor. Workstations, message flows, it's all from the vendor. However, notifications are developed in-house. These notifications are not only on the system, but also on the consumption of the resources on the database, on the servers level,
Right.
on the storage level, are done internally at JOPAC. Notifications of connectivity to the system are done in JOPAC. Automated testing tool are done, are procured from another vendor, and cases are set or are made, developed in JOPAC. The change management tools will be actually procured and from another vendor. The ticketing tool is from another vendor. So the vendor that supplied the system would only give you access or give you views that are directly connected to the database. The dispute management interface is will be also procured from another vendor, not from the vendor.
Right. Okay, Pierre, it's not really fair to ask you the same question because it's still very early days, but I know you have plans to start developing some of your own tools there. So what do you think is the learning curve for somebody who wants to develop new tools for your platform?
Yes, well, then I mentioned in my slide, for now we just worry about this fraud and risk management, and also some of the automation tools for the settlement. This is our main handicap, because I also share how they do settlement in a very efficient way in a lot of automated processes. This is an handicap. And we also have to think about all these operation side, how they link to each other. Although they are different vendor, I shared about very comprehensive one, how they link to the operation back. All the vendor different, so they are all linked together. This is what I learned. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. one of the things that's has become clear is that a significant amount of time is spent dealing with banks, MFIs, whatever, in terms of disputes and issues around transactions, etc. What has been your experience, PA, in educating the staff of these institutions in how to handle any of those issues themselves, how to investigate those issues themselves, rather than just picking up the phone to you? How difficult has it been to educate them, to train them?
Yeah, it's definitely a big challenge. Although I came from the microfinance industry, because yes, also for our country situation with COVID and all this situation, so microfinance they may focus in the other loan repayment and bar and all these things, operational issue. So the focus is not on the like digital payment fully. So they focus on the other operational matter. So all these things that sometimes what we share and this digital payment is quite important for them, like the white paper platform is important for them. They know that, but they don't fully concentrate on this project. Also, we are in a very fast beginning phase. I really hope that if we are really strong, like the Lion I mentioned about the JUPAC, maybe they're quite interested because we are quite mastering everything. But for now, when we are in a very early phase and we try ourselves and they also on the stage. So sometimes they're not so patient. That's why I mentioned this in the challenges. Sometimes in the internal communication, they said this is not a big deal, this is the testing phase, and they don't respond very quickly. So they take time. Okay, I have other mid-Friday test and I will answer you later. Also, of course, I see an issue, but it's in the testing phase.
That's frustrating.
So,
That's frustrating.
yeah. But of course, that we also understand them very well because they are in a very hard situation in Myanmar. So because of this, also the COVID and economic all this situation, so they have all these challenges. But I just forgot to mention about one learning gap that I got from Liana about this controlling the liquidity account of the this participant. It's really good. Whenever they do something, and Lana, if I got it wrong, please correct me. What I understood is they have to go through you for the approval of their transaction in the liquidity account, right? For example, their bank account, they have to get approval from you first, and then you link to the settlement. This is really, really good thing that I never did it before. Yeah.
PA, I would like to highlight the fact that that's what we wanted to do for WinePay, but because of the situation, we weren't able to do that. It is by far the best way of doing it. I quite agree. So, yes. Leona, do you have any comment to make on that?
Yeah, on the liquidity level, the system per participant, it has two types of accounts. One's called the settlement limit account and the other one's called the position account. Banks or participants with settlement accounts at RTGS would have the two types of accounts. One that needs the approval from Central Bank of Jordan and the authorization from JOPAC, because Central Bank has the visibility on the liquidity, because we try to reduce the settlement risks, credit risk and liquidity risks. So this needs to be approved by Central Bank of Jordan and then authorized by JOPAC as an operator. Right. And the other one, which is the position account, the bank can set the position account as it deems sufficient. It wouldn't matter because it will always have the pool of the settlement account. So the position account is set to non-settlement banks. It doesn't need authorization from JOPAC nor approval from Central Bank of Jordan, because there are instructions of that. And on the, I would like also to add something. We gained this knowledge and we're still in the learning actually phase. The system has been up and running for 2.5 years now. So it's an ongoing process of learning. There's so many things that we still actually need to do and to learn. That's why we learn from the experiences that we have. That's why we try to deploy most of the notifications or the things that I told you about. They were implemented this year. So it's an ongoing process based on what we're facing with participants.
Well, that's encouraging to know. It's encouraging to hear that you don't feel that you know everything yet.
No,
so that's great. Good, thank you. I see we have a hand raised from the floor. Pedro, you have a question?
Hi, Paul. Yes. Well, first of all, thank you for these presentations. They were really helpful. My question to both is, what are the 3 most important things that are either missing from Moduloop or could be done better? So what are those 3 aspects from you? I know this is a difficult one, but what are your thoughts?
I was trying not to ask that question, Pedro.
It has to be asked.
Okay,
This needs a bit of thinking from my side.
yes.
Just give me few minutes to.
Well, if there's nothing, that's encouraging.
There's always a room for improvement.
Always, always. Yes. So I think that, Pierre, you partially answered that in your presentation because you presented
Yeah.
a wish list that we've been aware of for quite some time.
Yeah, sure.
Is there anything beyond that list that you've already presented? You know, what's your biggest pain point that you would like addressed, which hasn't made it to your wish list?
Yeah, thanks a bit, bro, for highlighting this again. Actually, like all mentioned, I already raised this in the my presentation. As a very new ad operator, our main pain point is about automation, of course. Automations of the finance model and especially our main test, the settlement. But there's some step in the settlement which is manual, so which means it's quite risky to make a mistake or something wrong. This is our main concern if we go to the next stage with the client money or with the go live, commercial go live. This is our main point. For now, we can control very well. We train our staff very well for how to control it with Mega Chica person because I really like when Diana mentioned about they don't need standard process in the Mega Chica because they have very well developed in standard the back and technology control all of the back. For us, we do it manually by person, by people, so people always miss mistake. So this is our main pain point for us.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Pedro. Liana?
Yeah, because it will be very unfair for me to actually say what I would like to say, especially that I'm very new. Yeah, but actually I see that with all of the technical providers and technical vendors, I always encourage them to have a proper business document that would actually support and understanding the overall of the system and the flow of the system and the data flow. And then once you have that right, you will be able actually to have everything gathered in a proper way. I always find it hard to find a proper business documentation with all of the technical vendors. Usually they're way too technical for people to actually operate the system and increase or enhance the system. So
I think that's a really good point, Liana. Thank you. Yes, it's something that we are working towards, but it's a slow process. It's very, very resource constrained. But yes, the comment is very keenly taken on board. Thank you. Are there any other comments from the audience? No. Okay. There's something that I did want to ask you, Liana. This is a bit detailed, but can you talk me through the process that you go through when there is an upgrade to the underlying platform? So if CMA have an upgrade, for example, how do you bring it into production? What's the process and how do you test it once it's in production?
Okay. So in terms of upgrade, we have I would consider two things. It's an upgrade of the infrastructure, for example, the version of the database, which is very scary to me because that we do very intensive testing. But for the system upgrade, whether it was database or the system itself and the upgrade, first of all, we do the smoke testing internally at Geopark. And then we get back to all of the issues reported on the system previously that were fixed. We actually re-simulate those issues and ensure that they are no longer there, even with the upgrade. Once we do the stress and performance testing, of course. And then we actually ask participants, and we do inform them that we have upgraded the system to a newer version, and we would like you all to do all of the smoke testing on the system to ensure that no participant is affected, because you never know.
No, exactly. Yeah. So what is smoke testing then for you?
Functional basic testing of the functionality of the system.
Do you push transactions through?
Yes, we push.
But they're not real transactions.
No, on the system we have so the implementations differ. Some have a dev environment and then UAT and then the live. What we have is the UAT development environment. We do the testing on that. We have the simulator. That's why there was a simulator. We had to develop that internally, actually.
Yeah.
The simulator
So,
didn't.
right.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I'm concerned about, what I'm getting at, is if you start, you always want to do some form of testing in production to check that it is actually working. And if you do that with transactions, then that could appear in audit logs and it looks like a real transaction. So the approach that we've been looking at in the Mojaloop community is using a different currency, a fake currency effectively, and doing the final testing in a fake currency so that you can check that it all works end to end. Is that something that you have been able to do or would consider?
No, because I like the idea, by the way. It's nice because what you do is we do piloting on the live environment of different systems, but with a fake currency, because the system will generate the NCP that will be sent to the RTGS. And if it's fake currencies would require changes on participant side to be able to actually change their message to accept the new currency. So it's very hard to do it. That's why we do like at least 3 or 5 rounds of extensive testing. And as I told you, this is very hectic, especially when there's a hot fix because an issue happening on the live. Because you will be just crossing fingers, to be frank, like you never know what happens. So yeah, so basically we just do our job as much as we can when it comes to UAT testing and extensive testing. And then we just upgrade on the live environment. Usually the upgrades are done off peak hours, of course. All of participants are up with us, and we always check when is the off peak hours, and then employees of the participants would send a message, ensure that it can send and receive from all participants to ensure it's everything is managed.
Okay, thank you. That could be a very long discussion. It's probably not appropriate now. So thank you. I see Sam has his hand up. Sam, would you like to ask something?
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Len and PA. Congratulations and thanks for doing this. This has been great. One, I think, question is common for both, but another more specific to Mojaloop. But can you share what the performance you've been seeing with your systems and requirements in where Jopac and WinePay is working probably now, and your expectations in the future? And PA, maybe to see like what you need from Mojaloop to meet those requirements, or if what you have now is sufficient for that. That was on that. And also, this is a more generic question, but also on what we can do in Mojaloop better. The second question is about the release notes. If what you have in Mojaloop as release notes, is it sufficient for you? And do you expect any kind of support from the community or the Mojaloop Foundation or something like that for Mojaloop releases? Maybe you can touch on that. Thank you.
I can take the first question, and the second question, I just have a comment and give the floor to PA.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
So in terms of performance, we do the performance on multiple, or let's say a two-way performance. What we do is the stress testing on the system itself. We send bulks of payments to ensure that the system can handle the payments based on the historical data that we have. So currently, I would say it's very humble, but we have around 50 to 60,000 transactions happening per day. But taking Jordan, Jordan is very small, by the way. It's still very humble, but our testing would actually, we send usually 10,000 to 20,000 transactions per 3 minutes. So yeah, our performance testing actually, what it does, it tests how the system would be able to calculate, because what we do is the full cycle, like in terms of calculating the NCP, the reports that are generated to participants, all of those things. And the other part of the performance test is that we conduct on participants themselves. So we do bulk of payments to know the threshold that the participant can actually receive the messages, because it will be very enlightening to participants themselves. So actually in our testing, like when we start before onboarding participants or going to live, I'm like, okay, guys, hold still, you're going down. And then we do the bulk and the participant actually goes down of the system. But we have a rate of acceptance because we do It's crazy what we do. So we have an acceptance rate, like for example, 30 to 50% is good because we do a massive performance tests and stress testing. So participants would accept that rate enhanced. Sometimes they enhance and they require us to do one more, although we know that we will, like, not for the upcoming 5 years reach that amount. We do it like sometimes multiple of 1,000 of the expected rate of transactions. This includes, of course, latency on the network as well. We take care of that. In terms of what I'd like to see for Majaloop, I told you I haven't yet been very well. It will be very unfair for me, but there's always a room for improvement of experiences and cases occurred with you throughout the implementations and with other participants, because we're still a national switch. We haven't yet expanded, or we only hear what's happening within the world. So being involved in the technical part of the design stuff would actually enlighten us to enhance the systems and potentially actually share the knowledge and the experiences with others.
Thank you, Leana. I'm conscious we're running out of time. Pierre, would you like to respond to Sam's question? And then I think we'll need to close.
It will be very good because we're very like Jobash, we also have QA team who is strategizing. But not to mention highlight like I mentioned. We also have some testing by ourselves, by our QA team, and we're learning from them. For the performance, well, we're quite okay now. For now, we're quite okay because it is still in the testing phase with a very limited number. But we're closely monitoring the system. But we can say that we appreciated the support from the modular community. For now, we can say that we enjoy the support that we get from the modular. Of course, but in the future, we need to, because we are in a very stage. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pierre.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, Sam.
I think we've run out of time now, and I see people have already started to drop off to go to their next meeting, so I think it's appropriate to end this. So I'd like to thank you, Leana, Pierre, very much. You've been extremely forthcoming. It's been a really interesting session, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope our audience have too. I'd like to thank the audience for paying attention and for your questions, and until next time, thank you everyone, and I hope to see you at the next Product Council session, which we'll be booking in your diary soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.